In 1984, Michael Jordan signed with Nike. At the time, Nike were quick to temper expectations and insisted that their goal was to sell at least $3 million worth of Jordan-branded products in 3 years' time. Fast forward to 2021, and the Jordan brand has blossomed into one of the biggest athlete brands in the world, valued at $12 billion. Nobody, not even Michael Jordan, could have foresaw the empire that was to be built. Welcome to a Michael Jordan and Nike masterclass. It's generally said that Nike struggled as a company prior to signing Michael Jordan, and I need to dispel this myth because it gives off the impression that they were on the verge of going under. The more appropriate term would be to say that Nike were going through a minor rough patch during this period. In a company statement in 1984, Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike, wrote, "Orwell was right. 1984 is a bad year. We are not satisfied with the 1984 results. We believe we can and will do better." So why did Phil Knight think Nike was struggling? The numbers are clear. During this time, Nike was struggling to hit their growth targets. Their profits had dropped by 29%. And to make matters worse, Nike's competitors Reebok and Converse had solidified their position in the athletic sportswear marketplace. The former had taken up big chunks of the market share in that decade. In the early 1980s, Reebok held 26.2% of the athletic sportswear market, and Nike held just 23.3%. The latter, Converse, had already infiltrated the basketball market by signing their own marquee athletes such as Larry Bird from the Boston Celtics and Magic Johnson from the LA Lakers. Moreover, Converse was seen as the go-to sportswear brand by everyone, including Michael Jordan, who wore the Converse shoes in the 1984 Olympics. The 1984 Olympics was sponsored by guess who? Converse. While Nike was sputtering along in the 80s, only the opposite can be said of Michael Jordan, who was going full steam ahead at college basketball at the University of North Carolina. Now, if you've watched The Last Dance, you remember Jordan's college coach Roy Williams stating that Jordan's rough patch lasted for a total of 3 weeks before he blew away all the competition. His individual accolades at North Carolina included the ACC Freshman of the Year in 1982, the NCAA All-American First Team in 1982 and 83, as well as the ACC Men's Player of the Year in 1984. Most importantly, Michael Jordan led North Carolina to the NCAA Championship in 1982, a competition that they hadn't won since 1957. By the 1984 NBA draft, Michael Jordan was highly sought after and was widely expected to be a first-round draft pick, but ended up being a third pick after Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie, the latter whose injury-laden career ended up with him receiving the tag of the worst draft pick in American sporting history. Jordan ended up signing for the Chicago Bulls, and as we all know, went on to become the greatest basketball player of all time. So the scene is set, let's look at how Nike signed Jordan. It's unlikely that Nike would have approached Jordan in the first place if it wasn't for their head of marketing, Rob Strasser. Strasser identified that Nike weren't doing enough in the basketball scene, which was on the brink of becoming a huge market opportunity. Strasser believed that Nike needed an icon that the kids could look up to. Moreover, he was worried that their competitors Converse had already made moves of their own, signing NBA stars Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Rob believed that if Nike didn't make a move before basketball went global, they would find it too difficult to enter the markets. When Nike did decide to make their move, they had a plethora of choices. Nike executive Sonny Vaccaro had deals with 80 college basketball coaches who all agreed to have their players wear Nike. Nike had their eyes firmly set on a shortlist consisting of Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley, and of course Michael Jordan. Nike identified Michael Jordan as a young shooting guard from North Carolina as their prime target. His quick speed and explosive dunking ability made him a highly marketable player and subsequently their prime target for a signature brand.
Seconds left on the shot clock here for North Carolina. They're going to get it up fast. In the lane, it goes to Jordan. Fast enough.
Jordan preferred Adidas and Converse to Nike, and at the time, he was personally a huge Converse fan, which was the popular option at US colleges during the time. Jordan's head was initially turned by his assistant coach for Team USA at the 1984 Olympics, George Raveling. George had an endorsement deal with Nike, and due to the fact he had a lot of contacts with the rising stars in the college game, he was seen by Nike as the best option to open the door to Jordan. According to Jordan, George had told him, "You got to listen to Nike, you got to hear them out," over and over again. Without doubt, Jordan's positive relationship with Raveling opened the door to the possibility of Nike signing him. During the summer of 1984, Jordan had offers on the table from Adidas and Converse and was pushing heavily towards Adidas. As a result, when Nike offered to fly him out to Oregon to their headquarters, he refused. Upon hearing his refusal, Jordan's mother, Dolores, told him, "You have to hear them out, even if you don't want to." At Nike's HQ, Jordan was shown a presentation on what Nike could do for him by Sonny Vaccaro and Rob Strasser. Vaccaro and Strasser showed Jordan various lines of shoes, shirts, and other clothing with the exclusive red and black Air Jordan style. It's important to note that Nike were alone in offering him a signature exclusive brand. Adidas and Converse had their own athletes and couldn't afford to alienate them. Nike had used their late entry into the basketball market in a clever fashion and had created a competitive advantage for themselves. Despite the presentation, Jordan left unimpressed with the product line and also believed the red trainers represented the devil colours. However, Jordan and his family did fall in love with Strasser and Vaccaro on a personal level and instantly connected. This prompted Jordan to return for a second meeting over dinner where Nike promised Jordan what Adidas wouldn't, his own signature brand, the Air Jordan. James Jordan Sr. told Jordan you would be a fool to not take this deal. Jordan evaluated his options and found that Adidas refused to beat Nike's wage and Converse refused to make Jordan their signature athlete. Jordan signed with Nike for a deal worth $500,000 per year for 5 years. Nike had done the hard part and they had convinced Michael Jordan to sign. In the next 5 years, Nike would not have too much trouble marketing Michael Jordan. His performance on the court did all the talking. He said himself, "If I averaged 2 points and 2 rebounds per game, I would not have signed anything." MJ averaged 28.2 points per game in his first season and has quickly increased to 37 points per game in his third season, where he also broke the playoff record for the most points made by scoring 63 points against the Boston Celtics. Despite the Bulls struggling to win the Eastern Conference Finals to the Pistons, Jordan continued to sweep up the individual accolades. In his first year, Jordan won the Rookie of the Year award, and Sports Illustrated wrote a front page piece on him titled "A Star is Born." In 1987, Jordan also won the dunk contest and made shockwaves with his iconic photograph. Jordan's influence also spread to television. A commercial for the Air Jordan starring film director Spike Lee helped bridge the gap between sport and culture.
Not only just knock me down, you step on my brand new white Air Jordans that I just bought. And that's all you can say is, "Excuse me." Yo, man, how much you pay for them? $100.
American dollars.
108 with tax.
The initial Jordan campaign had a target of $3 million throughout the first 3 years. Instead, it shattered expectations and sold around $126 million in its debut year. Despite this, Jordan's brand did not have the immediate desired effect on profits. However, it did maintain a steady increase in revenue in the first few years, from $919 million in 1984 to $1.7 billion in 1989. Nike's Jordan campaign provided them with the foundation for what would be a wildly successful period of growth in the 90s. This is reflected by the drastically changing market share in the late 80s. In 1989, Nike overtook Reebok in the sportswear market, taking 25% of the market share compared to Reebok's 24%. And in 1990, Nike became the market leader, holding 30% to Reebok's 20%, while Adidas had suffered a major collapse and were on the brink of bankruptcy, holding just 2.9% of the market. If Nike didn't secure Jordan's signature, it's possible the revenue may have continued to decrease, as their competitors Converse, Reebok and Adidas were bringing in NBA stars to their brand every single year. As Jordan's contract came up for renewal in 1987, Nike were thrown a major surprise when their head of marketing Rob Strasser and head of design Peter Moore left to create their own company, Sports Incorporated, and would also later go on to join Adidas in what Phil Knight would describe as an act of unforgivable betrayal. Nike now were not only reeling from a loss of marketing and design leadership, but they had also lost 2 people who were very close with Jordan. Michael trusted Strasser and Moore and subsequently met with them for a meeting over the golf course. Michael left this meeting highly impressed with the design and endorsement opportunities laid out for him, and was very close to signing a deal which would take him away from Nike. Nike had one last shot with Jordan in a pitch meeting in 1987. Phil Knight commissioned Tinker Hatfield, an architect with very little experience in shoe design, to design the Air Jordan 3. Hatfield had previously impressed Knight in a company-wide competition to create an athletic shoe. Hatfield designed the Air Jordan 3 to be more tailored towards Jordan's needs. He did this by using soft but sturdy Italian leather to maintain the stylish fashion element, but also instilling an airbag at the sole of the shoe to support the ankle for liftoff during dunk maneuvers and quick sprints. Moreover, Hatfield designed the famous Jumpman logo and added it to the Air Jordan 3 immediately. Jordan was very impressed with his design, and he felt for the first time his needs were listened to, and a shoe had been designed for him that was not only fashionable but also optimized for sporting performance. Jordan rejected the offer from Strasser and Moore and re-signed with Nike. Phil Knight to this day credits Tinker Hatfield with saving Nike, a claim which Hatfield humbly denies. From 1990 to 1998, Nike's revenue grew by over 200%, from $1.57 billion in 1990 to $5.46 billion in 1998. In 1998, Nike reported that the Jordan brand had brought in $2.6 billion since its inception. This averages out to $225 million per year in the 90s. On average, the Jordan brand contributed to nearly 10% of Nike's annual revenue in the 90s. However, it can be argued that Jordan's involvement with Nike not only increased the sales of the Jordan brand, but also other items in Nike's product line. So we'll never know the true impact of Jordan's brand on Nike as a whole. Jordan's success in the 90s was impossible to ignore, and it made him the most marketable sports personality of all time. Endorsement offers were flooding in left, right and centre, and everyone was trying to get a piece of the Jordan brand. And who can blame them? In basketball, his legendary Chicago Bulls team won the three-peat twice, from 1991 to 1993 and from 1996 to 1998. On the court, Jordan was seen as the lifeblood of the Bulls. He was viewed as a steely, determined and win-at-all-costs type of player. In 1996, they lost just 10 games in their 82-game regular season, a record that was only eclipsed in 2016 by the Golden State Warriors. As a result, Michael Jordan wasn't just viewed as an ordinary athlete, he was a larger-than-life figure, a source of inspiration and a level that many aspired to be. By 1993, Michael Jordan was known worldwide. He had brand deals with many big brands, notably McDonald's, Coca-Cola and Gatorade. Jordan was even appearing in Super Bowl halftime adverts with Bugs Bunny, and his influence on a generation can be earmarked by the famous Be Like My adverts in 1993. Such was Jordan's financial and market power. His return to the NBA resulted in a total increase of $1 billion for all the companies he was associated with. It's evident that as Jordan's brand grew to a global stage, so did Nike's. So the question here to ask is, how did Nike utilize the success of the Jordan brand to expand their own revenue? The money made on both sides of the Jordan deal opened a lot of eyes in the sporting industry, and it opened the way for Nike to aggressively pursue signing more athletes, not just in basketball, but in American football, rugby and in tennis. Agents, sports stars and institutions capitalized on these opportunities to secure huge deals with Nike. During the last 2 decades, Nike have signed athletes who can be recognized as the best in their game, such as Roger Federer and Tiger Woods. Moreover, they identified the opportunity to provide lifetime contracts to superstar athletes such as LeBron James and Cristiano Ronaldo. By signing these famous athletes, Nike were able to expand into new sportswear markets such as golf, tennis, football and American football with consummate ease, and to quickly establish themselves as market leaders. Today, Nike are market leaders in the athletic sportswear market, holding a 50% share in the market, and also runaway market leaders in the basketball shoe industry, holding a whopping 86% share of the market. They're now at the stage of too big to fail. Their ability to constantly recruit young stars such as Kylian Mbappe means the next generation will always look at Nike as the market leader and the main brand. The Jordan brand, which was tipped to dip after Jordan's retirement in 2003, has continued to rise exponentially. In 2020, the Jordan brand raked in a whopping $3 billion. Michael Jordan himself has made around $1.3 billion since signing in 1984. What started off as a hunch from Sonny Vaccaro with tempered expectations in regards to financial performance turned into a global powerhouse, which transformed Nike and Michael Jordan into larger-than-life brands, and has also changed the face of influencer marketing forever. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video. It's coming out soon.